You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the NY Patriot Show. In this episode, I'm very happy to have my man, the Headless Giant, jumping on, co-hosting the show with me. What is up, my man? How are you? How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day out there. Starting to get some snow.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. I'm sure I'm probably getting it soon enough myself. And thank you very much for jumping on tonight. I appreciate it. That's what's up. I always love having you bring your look at things. I always, I always appreciate the way you look at and the angle that you take on things. And tonight, I only got one of the three tonight, unfortunately, but it's better than nothing. I got my boy Mike from Hush Hush Society. What is going on, Mike? How are you? And
what's up, dude? Good to be back.
Yes.
Thanks, as always, for having us or me on.
Of course. Yeah, no, unfortunately, we're even having, like, video issues, so you get to stare at an avatar, but for the people that listen, I guess not much of a difference, so it doesn't matter. But tonight, as you can see, or, in the title already, it's Disney. And I had seen that, my boys Hush Hush covered it, so I was like, I definitely got to get them on and cover Disney, because I'm sure, like, there's just probably not enough time in the world to really cover that topic fully. So there's so many different avenues and so many things about Disney, it's wild. So I was really looking forward to having you on, and then I was like, I got to get Headless on for this. I'm sure this will, we'll have some interesting things to talk about. But I guess, if you want to start it, first off, let me have you guys introduce yourself as well. I'm sorry, Headless, first, let everybody know where they can find your own stuff.
You can find my podcast on Spotify. I'm going to be having a guy on talking about the Oddfellows Society this weekend. And we're going to be talking about resets and the Oddfellows. And I tried to join the Oddfellows when I was in Baltimore, see what they were about. But
that's awesome.
I never got around to it. I asked them about lodge practice, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Anyways, we'll get into it on my show this Saturday.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Nice. I'm actually going to look forward to that and listen to it. I really don't listen to too many podcasts that much anymore, but that I'm definitely going to have to. Is he bringing on Zach Baggins with him too?
He's an odd fellow, though.
And he loves talking about the Oddfellows too. He has one of their, like, a recreation of their lodge in his haunted house.
Right.
Yeah. And then, all right, enough out of me. And then we got Mike. Just let everybody know before we get into the topic tonight where they can find your stuff.
Real easy. HushHushSociety.com is all our episodes and all that jazz. And, of course, we're on all the usual podcast spots. So
very nice, and I'll have your links in the bottom. And you know what? I'll take advantage of the situation since you're by yourself, and I don't have to feel bad. And I normally don't do this, but because it is a good product, I would like to let people know about your coffee. Because I'm drinking it right now.
There you go.
We got the Cloak and Dagger. I'm drinking the Magic Bean Theory right now. I'll be honest, and this is how you know it will be a true, honest review. He had sent me a few of the coffees that I tried out. I liked 2 out of the 3 that he sent me a lot. The other one wasn't for me, but what I will say is that the Magic Bean Theory and the Planetary Magic, I actually really like this fucking coffee. And I am a little bit of a coffee snob. I like the smell, the taste. I'm normally drinking like Lavazza or Illy, that stupid expensive shit. So like for me to actually be like, I really like this coffee, I really do think it's decent coffee. And another reason why I'm even promoting it is that I even remember Mike telling me about him wanting to or how he had this in the works. And I had no idea how much was involved in making coffee. And the thing is, it's because this isn't like something that you're going on to some site and it's already pre-packaged like these T-shirts or hoodies, and they're just smacking something on it and sending it to you. This dude actually picked a roaster. He went through all the shit. It's his fucking beans, his recipe, all that stuff. That this isn't like one of those, please buy my fucking shitty China fucking hoodie. It's actually good coffee. You're getting something back. So I'm just wanted to promote it because I know Mike, he's a gentleman. when I've had him on before, it's like, it's kind of not really part of Hush Hush, so I don't want to promote it. Well, it's just Mike, so I'm going to promote it. So
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
go check out. There's a discount code in there too that I've had in my notes, and I always forget to mention it. It's been in there probably since he's given it to me. There is even a site. The site's in the notes always, and there's a discount code that you can use, and you'll get a discount off of the coffee. I'm not getting anything out of it. I literally just want Mike to sell some of his coffee because I do think it's good.
Nice.
So enough about that. And now Disney. So what got you into covering Disney, Mike? Or what? I mean, there's so many things, but like, what was it? You were like, we should really do this.
Actually, it was in the books for a while. We had talked about doing it, and it's such an expansive topic. We had to do it in 2 separate episodes, actually. And I think that even in what we covered in those, 2.5 hours, it still wasn't enough. There's a lot of stuff dating back to World War II. There's a lot of Nazi ties, believe it or not. There's a lot of occultism, a lot of dark symbolism. Some real weird agendas that are actually true. It's not just somebody just going with a theory there. It's these are real things. So it was just in the books for so long, and we said, you know what, let's do this. Let's
that's
really nail it down.
That's one thing I think interesting that you said that, like, if people were to even just spend probably a few minutes maybe Googling the right things, it really wouldn't be hard to even find like legit shit that even the government of Disney has like actually said, admitted to, or been involved in. Like it's and it's like, it's so at that point, like, you could probably show it to just on those things. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, easily.
Especially with the war that DeSantis, the shortest war ever, DeSantis waged on Disney, and then all the Disney people had to do was cite, the royalty, and he was just off of it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. It's like, how does that work?
Yeah,
that was wild.
They are an extremely powerful corporation. A lot more powerful than you would imagine. You look at Disney and you're like, wow, that's a big company. You look at all their IPs, things that they own, companies that they own, but realistically, the power and the sway that they have over, the public and over pop culture in itself is immense.
Yeah, would you mind? I'm sure you probably. I think you did mention in the show, or I think we've even bullshitted about it on prior shows, like getting off the track. But like, isn't there like the whole like how is that whole area set up? Like it's almost, to me, it's almost like, it seems like it's like set up like the Vatican, really.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. If you've ever been to Disney, you know that there's like Cinderella's castle. It's just kind of like the centerpiece of it all, and it's actually that castle is actually modeled after a real German castle. With the spires and all that other stuff. There's some things about the castle. You can pay ridiculous amounts of money to stay in Cinderella's castle. And that goes along with, their Club 33, which in itself, you look at the name of it and you're like, here we go. The Club 33 is like the, I guess you could call it the high rollers of Disney. The people that are, they're
VIP.
yeah. They're the special ones.
Did you ever did you ever see like even some of like the food that they have in there and like what's on the menu and like how expensive it is to like even eat in like some of the like high like things that they have in Disney? It's like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, it's insane. The amount of food, the types of food, if you just look at like, what is it, around the world, or drinking around the world, eating around the world.
That's how I've seen it. Yeah.
Type of cuisines. Yeah. Wild
I saw
stuff.
that shit. I was like, yo, they're eating that shit up in Disney? I was like,
Yeah,
God damn.
yeah.
I was like, that's like the type of shit you get out, like, going to like, I don't know. I don't know. It was just very weird. But yeah, like and like the whole thing is, isn't it even like I guess it kind of goes back to what we were saying with DeSantis, isn't it like its own like entity, kind of like even like separate? That's why I was like kind of considering it like the Vatican. Now it's like
Yeah, like it's its own city state.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is. Realistically, it exists within Florida or, California or wherever. More so Florida, but if you know the location of Disney, it's pretty much in a swamp area, which is kind of weird in itself. But just found this large plot of land and decided this is where we're going to build it in the middle of a swamp, and it's massive. Like even
isn't that how they built the World Fair? Wasn't that in swampland too? Supposedly.
yeah. There's a lot. There's interesting correlations there.
Yeah.
But if you've like even driving past Disney, you can't see it. Like there's no way to see Disney from the road or nowhere to see it from the highway. They've made it so that it's contained in itself. And that in itself, creates the magic, quote unquote. But it's very like you can't even see it until you're like in it.
Oh wow! Last time I was there I was 5 years old, so like I don't remember.
Never been there. It's too expensive. I've been around the area, but yeah, the price of going to Disney is insane.
And like even I think like doesn't like. I think like the way the taxes are set up, it's like aren't the people who like basically live there getting back the taxes that they're paying? Because like doesn't it like go back to them or something like that? Technically, or some shit like that.
Yeah, that was actually part of the whole DeSantis thing. He was saying that they should pay taxes and all this other stuff, and Disney was like, all right, well, we'll pay taxes, but we're only going to pay taxes. And if you look at it, like Disney was paying more money than what they would pay in taxes to the communities around them. So that was like the big thing is like DeSantis wanted them to be taxed like any other entity in Florida. But, in spite of him, they were saying, all right, well, we'll just pay our taxes. We're not going to give you all the extra community money. We're not going to give you all the extra, dollars that we've been giving you over the past 50 years. We're just going to pay our taxes. Which realistically, if you look at that, that's a dumb move.
Yeah, no, I was even thinking that. I'm like, you kind of just, yeah. Do you think it could have been like a dog and pony show?
I'm sure, but that dude is also tilted. He's a little weird.
Yeah.
Well, the founding of these two different places all goes back to the CIA because Walt Disney got in bed with the CIA really deeply with the acquisition of all this land. So he had a bunch of different shell corporations buying all these different plots to make it seem like it was several different people buying up this area. But really, he just didn't want the property values to skyrocket. And so, the whole thing was done cloak and dagger style with the CIA's legal teams that was all about that. You there?
Yeah, there's some deep ties with Walt Disney himself and other government agencies, NASA especially, but also he was like what would they call him, an FBI asset. He was and this is where you get the callback to the power that they had in pop culture, is the CIA and the FBI. They would write out these scripts and pretty much say like, okay, you can, if you're going to make this movie, make sure that you're including X, Y, and Z in it. And he was all for it, trying to be like gung-ho American. So he was actually an asset for those government agencies in just creating these these pieces of media that Americans were lapping up, especially around the time of World War II and post World War II.
That was even another thing I did want to get into, and I think I'm sure Headless has something to say about this, and I mean you kind of like even touched on it earlier, like even with their cartoons, I mean I think they were heavily involved in you know, pushing war, and we even mentioned Nazism. You said before, but you know, talking about, you know, Headless brought up the CIA and everything. That's why I'm getting into that. Is that like, you know, how much do you think like they were involved with, like, I mean, obviously pretty much involved with like pushing war too, right? In a sense. And then, like, do you think like that was part of the Nazi influence, maybe?
Well, so the Nazi influence is kind of on two fronts. So there was the connection to Werner von Braun, who was actually part of some Disney, you know, super rah-rah NASA going to space exploring type of deal that Disney had put out. And there was connections of Disney, you know, having a relationship, you know, loose terms relationship with Werner von Braun. And then on the other side of it, Walt, he had like, he had gone to Germany a few times, and this was like right in the midst of the war, right before. He went to Germany a few times. He was, you know, he had met this filmmaker, Leni Riefenstahl, and she was like, she was part of the fascist party in Germany, and he welcomed her into LA, and there was this whole big thing. She was being protested for for being there. He was being protested for having her there, but other people also think that it had to do with her and the German government owing Walt Disney money. So they think that was the kind of the backing as to the reason of why he invited her to LA.
Holy shit! I've actually never even heard that story before.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was also a part of what was the name of the group? I couldn't even remember the name of the group. But he was a part of this pretty much German fronted American group. He was loosely attached to them. And it was, you know, it was very like a very anti-American group, especially back then, and more anti-Semitic, which is why you get the quotes and the theories about Walt Disney being very anti-Semitic. Yeah, let me see. Where was this?
Yeah, because I was gonna try to get into that part too, because I do think I have come across stuff, you know, kind of saying that Disney was a little bit, possibly even promoting anti-Semitic stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that you would be like, oh, maybe, but then you know, there's people that were quoted in a book about Disney, and former employees saying like, I'm Jewish and he was always nice to me and whatever else. His beliefs versus how he treated people could be two very vastly different things. But yeah, from what everyone was saying, besides like the ties to the filmmaker and the ties to this small group, which again, loosely based, it's not like he was like part of the group or anything, but he associated with people that were in the group, so I guess guilt by association. You know, that was really the basis that people were like, yeah, he's an anti-Semite.
Do you ever like look up what that definition actually means? Like, it includes a little bit more than just whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost intentionally obfuscating.
Yeah.
You know?
I've thought that before. I mean, you know, I remember hearing that fucking 20 years ago from Jordan Maxwell. I'm actually looking it up and being like, oh shit, okay, he was right. You know, but it was just like that. But, you know, if you actually even just fucking Google the definition of that, it includes a little bit more than just Jewish people. It's like a whole dialect, isn't it, basically?
Well, what they say is that the Semitic languages are the basis for Semitism, right? And so the Semitic languages would include Hebrew and, you know, other dialects, Arabic, you know.
Doesn't
so
like even Phoenician fall under that too?
Right. Yep. Canaanite, Phoenician, all that stuff. And the idea there is that it all falls under the line of Shem. Well, unfortunately, Ashkenaz, which is the vast majority of Jews, they don't fall under the line of Shem. Right? They fall under Ashkenaz, which is under a completely different person. So the Greeks call it Iapetus. The Hebrews called him, what is it? Not Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Japheth is the one that they would fall under, which is not even Semitic, because it's not in the line of Shem. But, again, it's the whole thing is meant to sort of confuse the issue. But that's the thing too. It's all sort of like a PR war. And the way I look at Disney is I go back to this old Irish saying, I believe, where they say a king without a poet has nothing. Well, Walt Disney was the poet of the king. Like, he was the corporation for the United States military. He was it. Like, he was there to prepare the minds of the young people to go to war.
It was almost like he was like a grand jester in a court, like entertaining the people. It's really interesting.
And all the German soldiers knew about Mickey Mouse. And so this is how they identified all of the, the soldiers is like, well, we saw the cartoons, so you guys have seen the cartoons, so we can connect with you on this level. And it's like, well, it doesn't mean the same thing to them that it means to you. Like, to them, it's just some sort of throwaway cartoon character, but to you, you think that this is some way that you can connect. But it's funny because that Prussian influence is there in both cases, right? So the Prussian Empire wanted to create the means to basically brainwash as many of their kids into going into combat as possible. And that same Prussian influence is really why the government was so heavily invested in a guy like Walt Disney, is because they wanted to be able to promote that nationalism and that basically sense of duty and service through the propaganda that Disney would put out there. Like when we were talking about the Nazis before, we were talking about all these camps. Well, those camps were part of basically the propaganda efforts to try and increase the awareness of the Prussian ethnicity in America. They were doing that long before World War II. So all these groups were, all the Germanic groups were alive and active up until World War II. And once World War II happened, it was just like, all right, we're back to saying German speakers are evil, because that's what they did in World War I, is they said, all right, we're banning the speaking of German in the United States. But it's like the vast majority of the United States was Germanic people who had immigrated because they didn't want to go to war. And what ended up happening over here is they got drafted into war. They lost their sense of identity. And so they're going back and fighting the people that they came from, their distant relatives.
The weird thing with that, and I guess even going back, in history, I guess, and how old it is. I still don't think that means people are any more ignorant or dumber then. But like I have, from covering things with you and other people, I do question a lot if the United States and like the Nazis or Germany do have some sort of like thing that they like they're working together to constantly test something. So even that situation right there that you said, how do you know that wasn't even just manufactured? Well, if you leave, you're going to just end up fucking in a war anyway. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, and like, we need some of the fucking fools to play the game, so they'll come over and we'll just use them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just wonder sometimes, like, how much of this is manufactured.
Ever since the time of the Romans, the Prussian people have always been used as the mercenary army for everything. So the Romans hired a bunch of Germanic mercenaries. That's I don't know if you've ever heard of the it's something Totenberg Forest. You ever heard of that battle? So there's this Germanic tribe whose leader used to be a centurion, right? And so he was trained in all of the ways of the Roman army. And he lured the Roman army into this forest that was kind of a swamp. And, he wiped them all out, and it was the most stunning defeat the Romans had ever suffered, because the tribal leader had given his kid over to the Romans so that he could be trained in this whole thing. It was like a multi-generational plan to sort of put the Romans back on their heels, you know, because they had the most unstoppable army in the world. So we're going to have them train our kids. Well, a lot of that's going on now with the School of the Americas, right? A lot of these dictators in third world countries send their kids over to be trained by the U.S. military so that they can end up, you know, using the tactics against this, you know, huge army that seems unstoppable. And so we're sort of repeating the same cycles of history all over again. We haven't had our Totenberg forest yet, but I'm sure it's coming. I mean, look at what's happened to Disney. You know, who's even watching their movies anymore? Where's the propaganda? Where's the energy? Where's the creativity? It's not there.
Well, the propaganda has shifted. It's no longer about, you know, being American. It's no longer about selling war bonds or getting that nationalism front going. It's about pushing an agenda, which I kind of mentioned earlier. You know, it was found out, and this is factual, that during their board meetings, they were pushing a gay and trans agenda within their movies and shows. You know, members of the board had said, we need more trans shows. We need more gay characters. We need more of those characters that will appeal to the children. And, you know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't care what you do with your life, but why are you trying to push that on children, especially in a Disney movie?
Well, I think it's a suicidal agenda. What they end up doing is they see the way that the corporate landscape is looking. And they're like, well, we can help. We can add to this. And I think a big piece of that is what's happening now with, I guess you would call it the, what's the effect where something in the past changes and you don't remember how they say it is? Mandela effect, right. So they're saying now that it's not mirror, mirror on the wall. It's magic mirror on the wall. Now that little aspect doesn't seem like much, but that could be the most profitable aspect in the world. Once you get people to doubt their own memories, doubt their own, you know, past, you can get them to do anything, you know, because there's nothing set in stone. There's nothing concrete. You don't have a past if they're able to change it. And so a lot of these, you know, big corporate agendas are sort of meshing with this idea of we've got to mess with the past so that people don't trust themselves. They can't make good choices anymore. They'll just go with whatever the experts tell them because obviously they're the expert. But again, it's kind of suicidal. You know, I mean, at a certain point, they're not going to have strong people who can, you know, push up the battlements behind them. They're just going to have a bunch of weak slaves.
Yeah, you know what a lot of times when I think of stuff like this, you know, there was a few things that you had even said with like the whole trans agenda, or, you know, that stuff. My opinion, I do think like, you know, I'll admit it. I have watched a lot of the like Avengers stuff, the stuff with that guy with the glove. I can't even fucking tell you the fucking name, but I've watched a bunch of those, and I did see Thor: Love and Thunder because I was told from listeners and fans that they thought it was a cult of shit. So I went and saw it. My nephews wanted to go, so I was like, fuck it, I'll go. You know, I want to check this out. I think they use occult ideas and archetypes and push stuff that would look as trans here. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, even like the rock guy, how like he creates, like how they create. It's like two dudes. Like I think it's just showing you how chemical shit's going on, like in an archetype way. And it's just the way it's going to be represented in this world because now it's in the flesh is going to be fucking weird. You know, and I think right. They use occult ideas that would mirror weird shit like that if you were to put it into the flesh. I think that's how, I even think that that's how they do it, and that's like how they even hook people. Because it's like we are actually showing you something very deep here, but your fucking mind is thinking it in a different way. Right,
sort of a universal archetype.
Yes.
And I think you end up pulling yourself into a trap once you go for all these universal archetypes, because each one of these changes are marked with another change. So if you look at alchemy, and where you find the hermaphroditic sort of aspects is at the end of the process. So like the hermaphrodite found in alchemy would be at the end of the process. Well, we're at the end of an era. We're at the end of an age. And what do we see all around us is this trans agenda. And it's almost like, well, it's tearing down the last little vestiges. So they're stuck in this sort of motif. They basically turned themselves into NPCs for whatever this process is, as it's producing something else, because they've invoked all of these universal images.
Yeah, there was even like one that I was watching. I don't know if it was from Love and Thor, whatever, which one it was. Like there was like I think a lesbian chick that rode like a fucking white horse. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, I understand the occult symbolism in that, but it's like to the kids, like, no, it's just a way to like, this is a lesbian. You know what I'm saying? But to me, like, that's really, to me, especially, a flying horse and shit, to me, with like a black woman who does not like women, to me, you're just showing like extreme male energy with very slight feminine holding around it. The very raw, expansive energy, but not chaotic yet, but getting there. Like that's how I would like look at it. And I'm like, I could understand like maybe what they're saying there, but again, I think like even shit like that, it's like they're taking occult archetype ideas and just spit it out into an image that like is there to warp minds because they know people don't know what the fuck this means.
I mean, they have a long history of making movies and shows that are very occult. One of the most famous, Fantasia.
Yes.
If you look at Fantasia is filled with imagery, and it's of memory the only Disney movie that was ever like scary to me as a kid, and I'm sure other kids felt the same, especially if you grew up in that time and that was one of the movies you watched as a kid. But there's so many other occult movies and shows that they had put out, and then there's them, they're releasing these movies that of course not many people are going to look into, but they're tied back to like the Brothers Grimm, or they're tied back to German folklore, Pinocchio or Cinderella, any of those big Walt Disney movies that you think of. They're actually really tied to like these really dark folk tales and stories. The story of Pinocchio in itself is like a wild one. It ends with like Pinocchio getting hanged by the neck. Like it's weird, wild stuff. And a lot of overtones with it too, where they talk about, taking kids to Pleasure Island, which was in the actual Pinocchio movie. Collecting little boys to go to Pleasure Island. It's always kind of a weird thing. And as a kid you don't really pay attention to it, but as an adult you look back and you're like, oh, what the hell was that all about?
I remember
a lot of weird
way
stuff.
back.
I remember. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think even the movie Pinocchio, I got this book called the Golden Ass by a guy named Apuleius, and it was written in 1st century. It's about this guy who transforms himself into a donkey. And so this is a Roman book talking about a lot of the themes that you find in Pinocchio, which was a later German folktale. So, and it was a very popular book at the time. Everybody really had to have it. It was one of the first novels, vignette novels that became super popular in the Roman Empire. And so the themes from that book carried on up into Germany. And I think that's where you get a lot of the donkey ideas in Pinocchio. And, that donkey associated with pleasure and all the rest of this stuff really does go back to the ideas that were put forward in The Golden Ass, because that book is the first book with the donkey show in it. And it was talking about alchemy and transformation and all the rest of this stuff.
That's interesting. Lisa was actually texting me about something about donkeys today and symbolism. That's pretty wild. Or just like weird things about like certain animals. That's like sometimes you wonder, like, could that be why the Democrat Party picks a donkey? You know what I'm saying? Like you just, They'll
On that
they'll
note-
laugh at you too. You know, donkeys can also laugh at people. Not every animal will actually laugh, or
Right.
visually laugh.
Set, the Egyptian god Set, was represented by a donkey, and I don't think we've lost that. I think there's some sort of anytime you see the donkey symbolism, it's associated with Set. You know, this is like the ultimate villain from the Egyptian pantheon.
That's a really good point. I never thought of that.
Your mic's off.
Yeah, I said I never thought of that. That's a really good point. I never. But I was gonna ask something. I know I forgot. Fuck.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Shouldn't have smoked that other joint. No.
Oh, there's another aspect too, which would be the UFO cult angle. So during this time when they were promoting a lot of these NASA propaganda films, they also had movies like Escape to Witch Mountain, which really did bring in like the alien agenda type movies, you know?
Holy shit!
Yeah, it was one of the first.
Yeah.
I remember, like, even as a kid, there was just a couple of movies by them that I remember. It's so weird. It's like maybe I was just into this shit as a child, or maybe it was because fucking Disney put it in my face. But there was like a few like movies by them that, like, if you were to look back at now, like it's been kind of considered like they were kind of like a very dark kind of cartoons. I can't remember the fucking not like Sword in the Stone, even though that it was kind of like very occult.
What is it? Bed knobs and broomsticks.
All sorts of magic.
I think that was another one.
Yeah.
I think every Disney film had to have some sort of aspect of magic in it. That was sort of like a prerequisite.
Yeah, I can't remember offhand, unfortunately.
Well, most of the movies that they're releasing, especially as of late, have something along those lines. You know, just recently they had Encanto. Encanto was like all about a big family that all had magical powers. You know, and their power was based upon like the lighting of a candle. So that in itself, you know, and that's just one example of however many, you know, movies they've come out with the same type of thing. I mean, the Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid goes and sells her soul to a witch. Mulan, she talks to the dead. Aladdin, it talks to a jinn. So there's a lot of different stuff like that. Pocahontas was another one, talking to nature spirits and goddesses.
Yeah,
Right, but it's such a difference from the themes that I remember growing up in the church. They were always saying, "Oh, Disney films are evil. Disney films are evil. Don't look at that. It's going to give you, you know, bad ideas about magic and everything." And it's funny because it's like there's nothing more all-American than Disney. So they really embedded themselves in such a way that even the criticisms coming from, you know, at the time, the moral majority didn't really affect them much. So they were always sort of moving counterculturally to the dominant sort of ideas. And I see a lot of this stuff with the trans agenda and everything else as being like another step along that path to move in a countercultural current. In a lot of ways, I think that's how the Freemasons operate, you know? So you've got this Club 33 idea that goes back to, you know, the Freemasons, but also he was very heavily influenced by Theosophy. And Theosophy was supposed to be the movement that would unite all the religions under one banner. Not exactly successful, but, you know, you can still see those aspects in a lot of different films by Disney and how he saw the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you mentioned like you know, like Freemasons and the Illuminati. Like the Disney name, like the lineage of their family can be traced back almost 1,000 years, back to 1066. And you know, it goes back to like English Normans and the royalty of England. And then once they kind of made their move across the sea, they changed their last name to Disney. It used to be Insigne Surmer, which was kind of like a, you know, surname on top of a surname.
Did you ever check out like the family crest or anything on that?
No.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, I never did. But then they the family kind of moved from like England, and then went, they emigrated to Ireland, and then they ended up in Canada. So there's talks of like that entire family line being loosely tied to like the 13 bloodlines. So that kind of like ties him into all that secret society type stuff.
Well, it certainly ties them closer to the British Empire, and the British Empire were such a huge influence on the CIA. And even in the recent court filings that Disney put out about the war that DeSantis sort of lost against them, they say, we will do it 70 years after the death of the latest, monarch. And it's like, that's a strange reference. Why are you even talking about that? Aren't we not part of the British Empire? What?
Yeah, that's
obviously,
weird.
they know stuff that we don't know, and that's sort of what they were indicating.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It almost feels like a disconnected thought in itself.
Did you guys ever see that? I'm sure you've probably seen it before. It is like spelt, I think, wrong or different, but there is like always that you see people always sharing that like Donald Duck thing where it's like Illuminati is like spelt on the back.
Yeah,
but like, isn't it like spelt
Illuminati?
like different? Yeah, but isn't it like spelt like off or something? Like Illuminati is spelt a little different. I don't know.
It's on like an eye board.
Yeah, like a chalkboard or something that was written on
like
it.
like test your eyesight, with the letters.
Yes.
I think I have a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, it's that's not the only mention of the Illuminati too. There's actually a lot of
oh really? Okay.
a lot of weird little things. There was like the Disney Goofy show or the Goofy movie, where he's riding a skateboard, and then he picks up the skateboard, and it's the Eye of Providence on the bottom of the skateboard. There's a couple like live action shows. There's a Zack and Cody. Behind them is a chalkboard that says something about the Illuminati. And then, of course, there's always like the talks of 666 within their own logo, and Lucifer and these little the horn devils and all the stuff that they hide pretty much within the show or within the movies. And then even if you look at Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, if inside their house, their stairwell, the ends of the stairwell are made up of owl heads, like all the way up the banister of the stairs in their house. It's all owl heads.
It's like some shit you'd see out in Yale.
Yeah, right. Yeah, weird stuff.
Wow.
They definitely do hide some of these things in there, and so you look at it and you go, okay, is this a bunch of animators that are just really fucking bored and they want to just throw something into a movie just because, or is there something more to it? It's like the talks of them hiding pictures of dicks in movies and in shows and cartoons. A lot of those things are really there. It's hard to deny that. It's on the cover of the Little Mermaid movie. It's funny, we actually found a little clip of Mickey Mouse, and you can find it online. Mickey Mouse is working almost on a production line, making Swiss cheese. He's working at a Swiss cheese factory, and to put the holes in the cheese, he is literally sticking his erect boner through the cheese, and that's how he's making the holes in the cheese. Hilarious.
Oh my god, I'm done. Wow.
I mean, all things aside, that's pretty ingenious.
Right.
That's ballsy. Damn.
But that sort of represents a whole different era, where you've got these bored animators who are sick and tired of all these codes. Because back in those days, you had codes out the wazoo about what you could and couldn't put into these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, it was killing the American film industry. And so sometime in the 1960s, filmmakers just decided that they were going to ignore all those codes. And in doing so, they had this explosion of Hollywood, right? And that huge explosion of Hollywood really brought all this stuff into, well, if we can ignore this and that, we can get away with anything. And so it was that sort of mentality that they kind of fostered. It's like, well, our creative energies can be better put to use if we just sort of tell people, hey, don't worry about it. We're just going to let you take it and run. Well, unfortunately, there's kids involved, so how far are they going to let this run? And not only that, but it seems like that influence, that occult influence, really got along well with that aspect, really sort of looked at that and said, hey, that's a lot of people we can recruit, And what you see today is that it seemed like for a while there, every other week they were having another bust of pedophiles working at Disney, If you remember that, it was like 2021, 2020, it was just like, okay, there's 17 more, 20 more. Where are these people? Why are they all working at Disney? Well, you go where the victims are, right?
Yeah. They had a lot of big child pornography busts that were going on down in Florida. Definitely a bunch of Disney employees, especially there was one about like a security guard who had worked at the park for many, many years. He was busted. There's a bunch of stories of them busting up like child porn rings having to do with Disney employees that were included in it. But at the same time, like I did question, and like looking at a lot of these busts, you would see like maybe 2 or 3 employees. I did question, all right, well, how many people does Disney employ in the state of Florida? You know, it's thousands, it's tens of thousands. So like, yeah, the percentage of people that are found in a child porn ring, that work for Disney should be 0. But realistically, if it's like 1.2%, all right, well, maybe it's not, a massive ring of everybody who works at Disney doing these things. But yeah, likely it should be 0. But again, you weigh it against the numbers and you weigh it against the area of where these people were found in the Orlando area, and look in the Orlando area, just in that immediate vicinity, how many of those people work for Disney. So, yeah, is it something with the numbers? Are we just working with statistics here? So,
right. When you look at it from the pedophile's perspective, it's like you've got a bunch of children, you've got a vast underground tunnel network, which is, under these parks.
I was going to bring that up.
And you have special status granted to you by the government. So where's the downside? Obviously, that's going to be like a mecca for these people.
Yeah, and we're talking about like the low level people. Like I said, a security guard. Now imagine if there was
those are the people who got busted.
Yeah, and then imagine if there's like a CEO, or imagine if there's some higher up that got caught. How would they sweep that under the rug? I can imagine that if there was a person who was caught in the act or got arrested or anything like that, that there was a way to get them off of that.
Yeah.
Especially as a higher up in Disney.
Yeah, I don't think the special status ever ended for Disney, DeSantis didn't really succeed, and basically the federal government keeps turning to Disney saying, bring that old Disney magic, and all they've got left is making another Avengers movie that nobody's excited about. So that's sort of the disconnect right now.
Are they associated with Star Wars at all?
Disney? Yeah, they own it.
Yeah, like I think, aren't they even like? Wasn't there something going on about like how like I think like someone associated with Star Wars or whatever was like kind of like pushing like the feminist shit now too, saying like in some don't know all the
Yeah.
details, but I've been seeing it on
Yeah.
the news.
No, as of late, actually, I know exactly what you're talking about. I just saw something the other day. The new head of whatever the hell marketing, I guess, for the Star Wars universe is a woman, and she was being interviewed, and she goes, I just like to make males, I like to make men feel uncomfortable. It's my job to make men feel uncomfortable. Which in itself is kind of like, okay, what does that have to do with you
Edgelord.
making Star Wars movies? But also, you do realize like what the demographic of Star Wars is, right? Like 90% of Star Wars fans are male. So you're
half of the women's percent is just going to be nice.
Yeah, my boyfriend brought me along.
Yeah, my husband likes these movies. I'm out of the house. Yeah, that's so very true. It's like, yeah, because when they're talking about it on the news, they're like, do you realize how much you're kind of screwing yourself? And it just makes no sense.
It's a weird tactic, weird move. Like, if I had looked at that and gone, oh yeah, I just hired this woman to be in charge of the Star Wars universe, sorry, you'd probably lose your job that same day.
You know what I even find like kind of interesting with Disney and why I think like it's could be definitely magical and occult, and I just really wasn't anything that we're talking about now. It's something that I have noticed and I do find it's funny. Like I know plenty of like conspiracy theorists that are like personally, like almost like family type stuff. And they will have like some of the like worst opinions about Disney. But then like they'll still have Marvel on the TV constantly. And they'll still take their kids or their family to Disney anyway. And I'm like, how the fuck does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's like that necessary evil thing, I guess. But how many people don't really realize how much Disney owns? Like if you were to look at the laundry list of different things that Disney owns, it might surprise you. And how many of those people are like, oh, I didn't know that, because I know going through our list, I was like, oh, I had no clue about that.
Oh, you want to go through that? That's something else we can jump into real quick.
Yeah, let me see.
Not to put you on the spot, but yeah, because I mean, like, I guess that would even like if you would even be counting news, like you couldn't even watch certain news stations, or most of them probably because Disney's involved. So yeah, I mean, so thinking about a lot of that shit. Yeah, I mean, you would be taking chunks of apps and movie channels off your TV.
Yep, they have the ABC Broadcast Network, Disney Channel, ESPN, Freeform, FX, National Geographic. They also own publishing, merchandising, music, and theater divisions, direct-to-consumer streaming services such as Disney Plus, Star Plus, ESPN Plus, Hulu, and they are also big part of BlackRock. Obviously. Yeah. Yeah, they own a lot. And then whatever else those other companies that they do own umbrella under what they have, like smaller companies and smaller IPs.
Is there ties with BlackRock to like Tavistock stuff?
Yeah, I mean there's ties to BlackRock to a lot of things.
Yeah, I guess yeah.
Tavistock in itself, I think Tavistock is, when it comes to Tavistock, a lot of people are like, well, it's a money generating machine. Well, I think Tavistock in itself is not a money generating machine. I think they make money for other people because they social engineer. They're all about social engineering. So that in themselves, they're not trying to make money. I would imagine that they get massive contracts from the government. I know in the past, especially during World War I and World War II, they were getting massive contracts, military contracts from the UK. And then once they became pretty much an American entity or had an arm of their organization in America, they stuck to mostly consumer products. And then you get massive companies like Unilever who would go and give Tavistock money to do product, like
That's a big company,
mass
too.
generating a product. Yeah, Unilever is beyond massive. And then they had their fingers in pretty much everybody's pie, especially when it came to music and TV and work movements. I mean, Tavistock is a big one.
They engineered the British invasion, so all those big bands.
Yeah, they engineered the firebombing of England. They engineered pretty much the start of World War II. You can attribute that to Tavistock.
Yeah, and the reason why I had asked about like Tavistock and BlackRock is because like I have wondered if Disney maybe like around inception or a little bit later, but like in the early stages, I had actually wondered like was it kind of almost like even like almost like a Tavistock project style thing where it's like, oh, let's see where we can go with this, and like now it's just taken on like a life of its own. But I do think like like kind of like mind control and perception and shit like that in the beginning.
I got a reference for that. So BlackRock uses an AI program to manage all of their accounts called Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a Disney movie right there. So the Aladdin AI program is supposed to be the super intelligent way of managing assets and stuff like that. I don't know how effective it is. I think like a lot of the AI that they say is in charge of stuff is just sort of an excuse. They're like, look, it's computers and it's super high tech. But really, what is it actually doing? How is it actually doing that?
Yo, you know what I thought was really weird? And, I think I even said it to somebody else recently. Like on that site that I was showing you. There is a part where you can actually like type something in and then you can choose to like highlight that or whatever. And then like you can choose their AI to shorten it, lengthen it, make it sound better. And like very quick, this thing was like spitting out stuff that like understood like that this was like an occult site. Like it was like way too specific for like me just starting to make this thing. Like it was like very weird to me actually. I was even telling Mario from Symbolic Studies, I was like, yo, the AI that's in Squarespace right now that I'm using, I was like, it's fucking creepy as shit actually. Because like it must be pulling off of everything that I've already typed myself on the site, and it knows where I'm going, and it was like writing poetic motherfucking shit. I was like, this is insane. I wish I could write this good.
It might be hooked up to your Instagram.
It was really bizarre, dude. For real.
Well, that's like GPT-4. Like that has access to the internet, so it's like pretty much anything that you want it to look into, it can look into. Like the free version of ChatGPT is not internet based. It's based off of like previous language learning back in like 2021. But this GPT-4, you can pretty much just say like, look at this website, interpret everything on this website, act as an occult magician, and write me out X, Y, and Z. It's all about like prompts, especially when it comes to AI, because AI will look at things and it'll be like a broad generalization. If you're like, oh, write me a poem, it'll just it'll write something ridiculous. But you can also be like, well, I want you to act like a master poet, a la Robert Frost, and I want you to write me 14 stanzas of the most amazing poem in the world, and it'll put out some like wild shit. So I can only imagine, like, with the abilities that it has and using the correct prompts, what kind of output you can get from it.
Dude, I mean, unfortunately, because I think like for stuff that I cover, how I might get like so specific with like certain things, I do think like when I'm maybe getting into numbers and just certain stuff, I do think it would probably fuck that up. But like I wouldn't do it because of I wouldn't be able to do the whole thing. But like at one point I was like, yo, imagine I just copied like all my notes and threw it in this and then like translated it to lengthen, you know, and just fucking recopy that and threw it back in my notes. But I was like, when I get into the specifics, even like because I did try it myself as I'm making the site. I mean, you're going to be obvious, like, this motherfucker didn't write this shit. This sounds too good. You know, I was typing in what I wanted and then just told it, like, you know, lengthen that a little bit. And, like, the shit was crazy. But, like, when you did want to kind of say specifics, for me, it just was like, you're going to fuck it up. It was fucking it up. It just would kind of get off numbers and just stay on, like, an idea and not get too deep. But it was still, like, very fucking, like, bizarre. It was just, like, it was just really weird. It was, you know, like, even how it was, like, just, like, it was, like, grasping things that it was just, like, I don't know. It's like it understood, like, occultism is in cults and in crime. It was just very fucking weird.
It makes me not want to put things out on the internet because it's like the only secrets you can keep are the ones you never tell anybody. The only real IP, don't tell Disney this, but the only real IP is the stuff that you keep in your head, you know?
Yeah.
So stuff like GPG, it's going to take the stuff that you put out there and it's going to claim it as its own without ever giving you an attribution or anything.
Oh.
So the more you put out, the more it knows about you.
Yeah, the more it learns. And that's really what it's based on. It's based on, like, learning off of previous users.
And
that's how the GPT 3.5 was made. You know, all that language learning was just pretty much like, well, we have 1 million users and 1 million different users are putting in this information. So it was pretty much building its own database within itself.
I had even wondered, like, even was like that AI that I was, you know, using with Squarespace. Is that like even building off of everybody else that has a Squarespace fucking account? Like, do they even have to even use the AI? Is it just going to scan every, like, you know what I'm saying? Is there like a database just due to the users to build off of? You know, who knows where it's going or how it works, but it's fucking wild, I thought.
One of the things I found really hilarious about the writer's strike recently is, you know, they wanted to make sure that the studios did get their hands on AI so that the writers could get their hands on the AI and have them build scripts using AI instead of letting the studios use it themselves and pay people a lot less to do the same thing that these writers are doing. Because getting to know the narrative structure, that's a long and arduous process, but ChatGPT already knows it. And look at these movies they come out with. You're not telling me that a very creative person is coming up with this stuff. It's all derivative.
Yeah, I've even wondered, like, if the algorithms are made and just pumped out. Like, this is what works. Somehow make a movie out of this.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it is. It's, you know, it's like if you look at Disney movies, just to bring that back.
Yeah.
If you look at Disney movies, like a lot of the big overarching storyline is to get rid of the parental figure. Like, how many Disney movies end or start with the mother being killed or the father being killed or the brother
or parents or somebody missing.
Yeah, it's some parental figure is always killed. Just think of the most obvious one, Bambi's mother. Boom. That's number one. That's the first one that comes to mind. But there are many other ones, and that's really what, you know, and that's another thing that people accuse Disney of is trying to separate the child from the parental unit, trying to make that separation where they are convincing the child that the child is better off by themselves. The child doesn't need your family. You don't need parents. You don't need that. Look, this fictional character went off and did what they had to do. And even if it's not getting rid of a parental figure, it's arguing with a parental figure or fighting or getting into this big thing. And of course it always ends with, oh, you know, I was right, I was wrong, let's make up. But that is the step towards their journey. It's, my dad said no, I'm not going to do that, so I went and did it anyways. You know, my mother forbid me.
Childhood trauma.
Yeah, you know, I was going to say another thing. I mean, if you think about it too, like I even like I remember it, was I don't know, maybe it was just I was a weird kid or something, but like a lot of people even took that whole scene from Bambi as like, oh my god, like that, they showed like death, like,
Yeah.
and sometimes I just wonder, like, is it even just the idea of needing to keep that you're gonna die as a fear tactic? Like, we have to remind you that there's death. Somebody's always got to die. Like, just the reminder of death and fear have to remain in some way.
Oh, a lot of SRA abuse uses Disney movies as triggering mechanisms to bring out alternate personalities, using these Disney movies as that trigger point. So as you're traumatizing the child, what they'll do is they'll be playing these Disney movies, and that Disney movie could be used as the trigger point for what they want to accomplish against these kids in the future. So a lot of what Disney was doing was sort of making the ability for programmers to use their films as a methodology, because the idea of a Manchurian candidate is nothing new. They've been doing this for centuries. So I think Disney knows exactly how to make that psychological breaking point. And a lot of what they do is introducing the trauma of losing your parents in these films as a method of sort of breaking the child.
I wonder if they did that too. Didn't they? Wasn't McVeigh like oh, he was MK Ultra, right?
Same stuff.
Yeah. I wonder if they played. I wonder if they blasted him with Disney shit.
Well, it's funny because there's the theory that Disney during the mind control era, like the 50s and 60s, 70s, that they were subjecting children to watching Fantasia while having their eyes taped open, and they were given doses of LSD, like to kids like as young as like 3 and 4 years old.
It's funny. All we know about the MK Ultra projects were what was happening up in Canada. All the rest of it stayed classified. But all the stuff that was happening in Canada, that's the stuff we know about. But they were doing it in the United States. They had Operation Midnight Climax out in California. But what you don't really hear about is the child experiments happening in the United States, even though they were doing the same child experiments up in Canada on mentally ill or traumatized kids up there.
Yeah. And there were over 300 or over 240 different sub-projects under MK Ultra itself. So like you're saying, you only know about 1 or 2 of those. Think about the other 200 something that you have no idea what they were doing.
And it's funny, MK Ultra was paired with MK Naomi. And what was MK Naomi? Oh, that was a virus project. So they were working on these pandemic viruses as a tool right alongside MK Ultra, because this was their mass hysteria plan. I don't know if it worked out the way they wanted it to, but we'll see next time they try it.
Was there anything else that either one of you's had that you wanted to like at least mention about Disney or anything important?
I had one thing.
Yeah,
so
please.
about the energy of Disney right now and about where they found themselves, I think was exemplified by this video I saw of this guy who had taken a bunch of acid and he was riding on the Small World ride at Disney, right? And so he was so messed up on acid that he stripped off all of his clothes and he was crawling around on all the little exhibits, right? Well, all these people were shocked and like, there's a naked guy crawling all over this stuff at Disney. But at the end of the video, you heard people yelling at him, there are kids here. But there was not a single kid in any of the videos. It was just these Club 33 weirdos with their little Mickey ears on, riding these rides that are meant for children, watching a naked guy trip out on acid. What does that tell you? I mean, they're not even connecting with the kids. a family can't even afford to go to these places. They're way overpriced anyway. But like that's the energy of Disney now. It's like all of these aging people who go there to recapture their youth or to stay in this, permanent state of adolescence by riding these kiddie rides as they watch another, fully grown adult who's completely messed up on acid thinking that he was going to have a good time dropping a couple of hits on this ride. That's the energy of Disney today, right? It's all of these adults who want to stay children.
Well, think about it this way: children don't have money; adults do.
Right.
So Disney, the thought process of like Disney being this like child, company, is not true. If you were to look at the things that they create, if you were to look at the park and the way that it's set up and the different properties that they have, it's meant for adults. It's meant for millennials who grew up with, the heyday Disney movies, and they still think about that, and they still, they work off of being reminiscent of, oh, I remember when I was a kid and I watched this, and it brings up all those feelings, and now those people have wallets full of money. Like, oh yeah, well,
adolescence.
Yeah, that's all it is. That's all it is.
Very well said. Mike, you got anything else, or are you good?
I'm good.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate you both coming on. That was a really fun and interesting talk. Again, I do like how I did get different areas of expertise in here. Thank you very much, Headless, for coming on and co-hosting with me. Let everybody know where they can find your stuff one more time.
You can find me on X. I'm at the Headless Giant. You can find me on Instagram. I hardly ever do anything there. I got to pick that up again. And also, you can find my podcast on Spotify. Look up the Headless Giant podcast. And this weekend, we are going over the Oddfellows Society. It's just as old as the Freemasons, but it barely gets any attention, despite being one of the most, actually, in the 1920s, it was the most populated fraternal society in America. So it had a big influence. What exactly happened since then? So we'll be talking about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, man. Good stuff, Headless. Good stuff. And thank you again for coming on. I always appreciate it. And Mike, let everybody know where they can find your stuff as well.
HushHushSociety.com. That's the easy way.
That's right, yeah. Keep forgetting.
And then pretty much anywhere you can listen to podcasts. That's where we're at. We're finishing up our current season next Monday. And we'll be covering sports conspiracies. That'll be the season ender for us.
Awesome. Very nice, man. Very nice. His stuff will be in the bottom, and I don't know if it will be out by then or not. By the time this comes out, I think so. But it's a new thing that we're working on over here. We have the Occult Research Institute. That website will probably be up and running by the time this drops. If not, I'll include it eventually in the links when it does.
Only partially built by AI.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that's on like the template shit, on the front, trying to sound good when our vision, stupid shit like that. Not like my research, but yeah. So Headless will be on there as well. So I did want to mention that it's going to be a bunch of different people talking about different topics. There'll be tarot, symbolism, astrology, crime, mental manipulation. Stuff to do with the body, that'll be called signatures of life. That's kind of the symbolism that kind of goes along with the body. Paranormal, we'll have paranormal people, personal experiences with magic, astrology, if I didn't say that already. We might end up adding art, and we will even have suggested readings and suggested videos, and we might have the links for the PDFs. And there will be a whole bunch of other different people. A lot of it will be some of their own work from the past, but it'll actually just all be kind of set in sections. So, like, you know, there's things on here from, like, Mario from Symbolic Studies may literally be posts that he did 2 years ago on Twitter, but now it's, like, actually just in one straight form instead of the split post. It's probably something new because he did it 3 years ago, and people who just heard of him never fucking saw it. But, like, it will have a lot of stuff like that, but there also will be, like, blogs and actually typed out, like, papers, kind of research or opinions on things, especially from, like, me and Lisa. And I'm sure Headless will probably have some pretty in-depth things he'll be putting up eventually, and some other people I've spoken to. But I do highly suggest to check it out. You know, it's something that I think will work out well. There's probably at least 10 contributors already. You know, and I'm very happy to have Headless as one of them. So,
And is that going to be free?
Yes, it will be. Yes. Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes, and that is one thing. There will actually be an LLC attached to this, and like everything like on the site. Actually, there'll be a disclaimer. It can be reused, but it has to be cited and cannot be put behind like a paywall or used for money. You know, so this actually will be like a real institute and actually attached to an LLC. You know, and this is published work, so it should be something interesting. Looking forward to it, and I think it'll turn out to something nice eventually. So yeah, I just wanted to plug that real quick, and again, real quick, if you're still listening, check out my man's coffee. I highly suggest the Magic Bean Theory and the Planetary Magic coffee. The Planetary Magic one is actually, you probably could have called it anything, and I would have said it was my favorite anyway. It has nothing to do with the name, but like I really, really do like that one. And I was drinking his coffee right now on the show, so I didn't want to mention that. But definitely check out his stuff again. Like it is, I do think you're actually getting a good quality product for the money if you're into coffee. Definitely suggest it. And that is the end of another NY Patriot show. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.